Welcome back. Today is our last day of geometry. I know yesterday's lesson was probably the toughest lesson you guys have done in more than a month. So we're not going to actually learn anything new today. We're going to review what we've learned Monday and Tuesday and get a little bit more practice with it. I promise you the stuff we're starting tomorrow is a whole lot easier than what we've been working on the last 2 days, but we do want to make sure we know how to do it so that we're ready for 7th grade. Okay, you should have your PDN up. Go ahead and fill it out. Press pause as you're answering your questions, and then come back when you're ready to check your work. Okay, for the first question on the PDN, it's asked us to find the height. So I'm always going to start with volume equals length times width times height. We talked about how I use that cursive L so it doesn't look like a 1. I'm going to plug in what I know. In the problem, it says that the volume is 576 cubic inches. So I replace the V in volume with 576. It says that we don't know the width, so I'll leave that as W. It says that based on the picture, I'm going to pick 8 as my length and 6 as my height. What can I do first? I know that it actually doesn't matter the order of these multiplications, so I can do 8 times 6 first and get 48 times W equals 576. All I did was 8 times 6. I draw my line. This is multiplication. Inverse is division. Divide by 48, and I get W. On the other side, divide by 48, and I'll get my answer. One of those probably need to do scrap work for this. 576 divided by 48. 1 times 48 is 48. I subtract to get 9, bring down my 6. 48 goes into 96 2 times. Nice, luckily it went in evenly, and I get 12. So W equals 12. And I'm going to put my final answer as 12 inches rather than inches cubed because I'm not talking about volume. Okay, so like I said, we're just going to do some review today. We need to remember that the formula for volume is length times width times height. That unit is always to the 3rd power. Here's our first example. Find the volume of a fish tank that's 8 feet long, 5 feet wide, and a height is 5.5 feet. Okay, pretty straightforward for this one. Of course, I'm going to start with my formula. Volume equals length times width times height. It tells us that the length is 8. It tells us the width is 5. It tells us the height is 5.5, and I'm trying to solve for volume. Nothing complicated about this, just very straightforward. I know 8 times 5 is 40 times 5.5 is going to give me the volume. And then I would come over to the side and do 5.5 times 40, 0, 0. Put my 0 as a placeholder. 0, carry the 2, 22, 0, 0, 2, 2, 1 spot after the decimal. So 1 spot after the decimal gives me 220, so the volume is 220 feet to the 3rd power. Remember that when you're putting that on your computer, you can either write out feet to the 3rd power, you could write out feet squared, or if you can figure out the exponent, you can do that as well. For number 2, so the area of the base of a rectangle is 20 1/4 inches squared. The volume of the prism is 11 3/8. What is the height? Again, I'm going to start with my formula. Volume equals length times width times height. It tells me in the problem that the volume is 11 3/8. It tells me the base of the rectangular prism is 20 1/4 inches squared. I know that that means they've already multiplied length times width for me. That's how they found the base to get 20 1/4 times h. To solve this, I draw my line, divide by 20 1/4. I'm left with h. On this side, I also need to divide by 20 1/4 to see what I get. Now I'm going to rewrite this problem over here so that I can solve it. 11 3/8 divided by 20 1/4. 8 times 11 is 88 plus 3 is 91 over 3. Divided by 4 times 20 is 80 plus 1 is 81 over 81 over 4. Keep flip, 91 over 3. 91 over 8 times 4 over 81 do some lacrosse here, make this a 1, make this a 2, and I get 91. 2 times 81 is 162. That's going to be my final answer for this. I'll move it back over here, and I'll write that height equals 91 over 162, and my unit on that is inches. 91 over 162 inches. Remember that it does not need to be inches squared. It doesn't need to be inches cubed because we're just talking about the height here. Excellent. You are going to do, just like the last few days, 3 practice problems. They should be a little bit easier than the days before. You'll pause the video now and solve these and come back to check your answers. Okay, let's do number 1 first. It asks me to find the volume. Volume equals length times width times height. It tells me that my length is 7.5, my width is 4, my height is 2. Order does not matter, so I can pick what I want to do first. I'm going to do 4 times 2 first, because I know that 4 times 2 is 8, times 7.5 will give me the volume. I probably have to do a little scrap work over here. 7.5 times 8, 0, carry the 4, 6, 60, 1, 1, 1. So it tells me my volume is 60 inches to the 3rd power, or inches cubed. Make sure you have your unit right on that. Number 2. Number 2 says a rectangular prism has a base of 10 and a width of 7. What is the height if the volume is 770 meters cubed? Volume equals length times width times height. I know that volume is 770. I know that the rectangular base of 10 meters, that's going to be my length. I know that my width is 7, and I don't know my height, so I leave it as h. 10 times 7 is 70, times h equals 770. If you can do this problem in your head, great. If you can't, we can write it out. 770 divided by 70. You will not make a mistake with your 0 or your decimal placement if you actually write out the division problem. Bring down my 0 1 time, and I'm good to go. So my answer for my height is 11, and this was in the unit of meters, so 11 meters is the height. Number 3. Number 3 says that the area of the base is 5.5 feet squared. The height is 2.5. What is the volume? Volume equals length times width times height. It tells me that the volume, I do not know. Says the area of the base is 5.5. So I know that that's length and width together, times a height of 2.5. So I just have one multiplication problem I got to do to solve this. Come to the side to do it. 5.5 times 2.5. 5, carry the 2, 27, 0, 0. Again, you should just be checking your work right now. Hopefully you've already come up with this exact answer, which is 13.75. So for my final answer, I'll write that volume equals 13.75 feet to the 3rd power. Cannot forget the unit, and with volume, it's always to the 3rd power. Okay, hopefully you had all 3 of those right, especially because this is our 3rd day working on volume. You have 3 more problems to do. You should pause the video and come back when those 3 problems are solved so we can check our answers. Okay, welcome back. Let's start with number 1. Number 1 was pretty straightforward. Volume equals length times width times height. It tells me that I'm just going to call 4 the length, I'll call 5.1 the width, and I'll call 9 the height. It doesn't matter which one we assign to which, because order doesn't matter in multiplication. In my mind, it's easiest to do 4 times 9 first, so I'm going to say volume equals 36. That's 4 times 9, and then I still got to multiply times 5.1. I definitely need to do some scrap work for that. I'd come over to the side, 36 times 5.1, 63, 0 as a placeholder. 1 number after the decimal in the problem, so 1 number after the decimal in my answer, and the volume equals 183.6, and we're on centimeters, it's volume, so we need to say cubed. All right, number 2. I know it's a volume problem, so I'm going to start with volume equals length times width times height. It says the rectangular base is 6 and 7. So length is 6, height is 7. It says I don't know my width, but I do know that my volume is 252. Okay, I'm going to start by combining the 6 and the 7, which give me 42 times W equals 252. Draw my line. Divide by 42 to get W. Divide the other side by 42. So this is the problem that I have to solve. 252 divided by 42. 6 times 42 equals 252. So my width is just 6 meters, not squared, not cubed, because I'm just talking about the width here. Okay, last one. This is one you'll want to make sure that you've already done on your own and you're just checking your answers right now. If you have this down, you can consider yourself an expert at volume. Volume equals length times width times height. It says the base of the rectangular prism has an area of 12 and a half. So I know that the base is 21 and a half feet squared. That's actually the length and width already multiplied for me. It says the volume is 125. And I'm trying to find the height. Okay, this one is going to take a little bit of work, but that's okay. I'm stuck in the house anyway, might as well do the work. Draw your line, divide this side by 12 and a half, which gives me H. If I divide this side by 12 and a half, I need to divide this side by 12 and a half, and that will give me my answer. So my math problem is 125 divided by 12 and 1/2. 125 over 1 divided by 2 times 12 is 24 plus 1 is 25 over 2. Keep flip for division. 125 over 1 times 2 over 25. Some lacrosse I can do. 25 goes into both of those numbers, which gives me 10 over 1. So my final answer for this one is height equals 10 feet. Make sure you've recorded that on your Google document. As always, you're going to want to answer your exit ticket right on the Google document or send me a picture of it. If you send me a picture, it should also include your work. And then you have a Khan assignment. You have a quiz on Khan that's due today, so make sure that gets done today. That is it from me. If you have any questions, as always, you can text me or call me, 847-769-4731. And like I said, I promise you, tomorrow things go back to getting a lot easier. Good luck, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.